Welcome to Coffee with Democrats, a sensible platform for progressive conversations. Coffee with Democrats is a grassroots movement dedicated to hearing from Democrats, candidates, legislators, and friends from all political backgrounds who want great conversations. Coffee with Democrats is committed to increase Democrat voter registration and Democrat voter turnout by making voting more exciting and meaningful. And now here's your host of Coffee with Democrats, Kevin Dawson.
Let me get that turned off. Good morning. Good morning. This is going to be a fantastic day today. We are going to have Beto O'Rourke on here. At least that's the plan. He just sent me a text message. He's running just a few minutes late, so we're not going to fret over that. While we're waiting on him, I'm going to kind of move around on my agenda here a little bit. And we're going to talk just a little bit about who Beto O'Rourke is. So Beto O'Rourke was born Robert Francis O'Rourke. He's an American politician who served in the U.S. House of Representatives for Texas 16th Congressional District from 2013 to 2019. He's a member of the Democratic Party. Beto was the party's nominee for the U.S. Senate in 2018. And he also ran as a candidate for the presidential nomination in 2020 and the party's nominee for the 2022 Texas gubernatorial election. Beto was born into a local political family in El Paso, Texas, and is a graduate of Woodbury Forest School and Columbia University. While studying at Columbia, he began a brief music career as a bass guitarist in the post-hardcore band called Foss. After his college graduation, he returned to El Paso and began a business career. In 2005, he was elected as the El Paso City Council, serving until 2011. He served as mayor pro tempore during his first year in office. O'Rourke was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 2012 after defeating 8-term incumbent Democrat Sylvester Reyes in the primary. After being reelected to the House in 2014 and 2016, O'Rourke declined to seek another term in the 2018 election. Instead, he sought the U.S. Senate seat held by Republican Ted Cruz, running a competitive campaign that drew national attention despite losing the election to Ted Cruz. O'Rourke set a record for the most votes ever cast for a Democrat in a midterm election in Texas. On March 14th, 2019, O'Rourke announced his candidacy in the 2020 United States presidential election. He suspended his campaign in November 1st, and he also did so in coordination with Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg, who also at the same day endorsed Joe Biden. On March 2022, O'Rourke won the Democratic nomination for the gubernatorial election in Texas. However, he did fall just a little bit short to the Republican incumbent, Greg Abbott, in the general election. So we're pleased to have Beto going to be coming on here shortly. Again, he's running about 5 minutes late, so please bear with us, folks, as we continue to move on here. And I'm going to say good morning to my co-host this morning, Scott Hamilton. Good morning, Scott. How are you doing?
Kevin, I am well. Good morning to you. As you were going through Beto's history, I couldn't help but think how much better Texas would be if he were the governor right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The stuff that's going on down there. You know, it was last summer, and as a person who worked in the outdoor environment for 43 years with the railroad industry, one of the things I found very interesting is the trends moving in the last 10 years was to help people who were working outside to have water breaks, to take breaks in order to be able to hydrate themselves and stay healthy. And the governor last year, Greg Abbott, signed an executive order banning such breaks that that he called them mandatory breaks. He banned any kind of mandatory break in the state of Texas. And I found that to be absolutely cruel and unusual punishment for the workers in the state of Texas. I mean, it's hot in Oklahoma. I mean, right now it's 88 degrees, and the heat index in Oklahoma is going to get up to 103 degrees where I'm at today. I can't imagine working in that environment this afternoon in the heat of the day and not having a mandatory water or hydration break.
No, it's insane. I saw a post from a coach in Texas saying that they were going to do 2-a-days all summer, and there would be no hydration breaks for the kids. And so it's cruel all the way up and down.
Yeah, I don't understand that. To me, it's like we're denying everything scientific that we've ever learned, and it just completely baffles the mind. But anyway, I digress. You are absolutely correct. Texas would have been so much better off. And even going before that, Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is such to me, he reminds me of you remember the 1960s show Flipper?
Oh,
and yeah. He's a flipper. He just flip flops all over the place. He's like a fish out of water everywhere he goes. And he just cannot conduct himself in a constructive manner. I saw a video of him fist bumping, a measure in the Senate that would have allowed for, again, a great financial relief for Americans. And he was fist bumping because he was one of the leading senators to defeat that effort. And again, who suffers as a result of what's going on? It's the working people. So
right.
It's really sad. It's a sad state of affairs.
I want to put you. That was a great introduction to this comment from Brian Markham. He says the Democratic Party needs to get back to economic populism with values. Working people and poor folks all have kitchen table issues in common. Everybody does better when we all do better. And I think that he's got a strong point there because,
Absolutely.
as you say, it always falls back on working folks, Kevin.
Sure it is. It is such a strange world that we're living in right now, and it's one that we cannot lose in November. So we got to keep our eye on the prize. We've got to. I'm going to say this. I'm going to preface this because you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this since it happened. But when President Biden backed out of the election, it was really painful, and it hurt. But now I'm so excited to see somebody like Kamala who comes on and is doing such a wonderful job. Well, folks, we are going to pivot now because we've got such a great candidate, a great voice for the Democratic people. And he's on here joining us now. And let's welcome him to the stage. Good morning, Beto. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good morning to you. Thanks for having me on.
We just read through your biography. We kind of filled the space in here a little bit with a little commentary. We are just ecstatic to have you on with us today. So thank you very much for joining Coffee with Democrats.
Absolutely. And listen, I really appreciate what you're doing. I think that states like Oklahoma, states like Texas become an afterthought in our party's conversation nationally. And understandably, folks are focused on Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, and Georgia and Arizona. And those are all really, really important places. But I really see the future of our party and really the future of our country in the states where we're doing this really important work and where literally tens of millions of people are effectively going unrepresented because Republicans can take their votes for granted. And Democrats, frankly, at a national level, really aren't showing up. And so it's really up to us those who understand there's no cavalry coming to our rescue, that it's up to us to do what we can with what we have, where we are, to get this done, and to make sure that ultimately our states are reflective of the will of the people who live here, who are not represented in the really extreme policies that we're seeing. So I'm grateful for the work that you're doing, the attention that you're bringing to these issues, and the candidates that you're supporting.
Well, and we are so grateful again to have you on with Coffee with Democrats, and we're going to skip over our normal conversation about coffee. That's how we generally start all of our conversations. We're going to skip over that and get straight into the most important questions and the most important topics that we really need, because your time is limited. You're not going to be able to be on here for an amount of time that we normally will take. But let's talk about what you think at this point is the greatest concern that you have this morning, and some of the positives that you want to pass on to our audience.
Job number one is to make sure that we defeat Donald Trump and stop very radical Republicans from driving this country into a ditch. And as we just discussed, I mean, there's important work to do in what are typically defined as battleground states.
Right.
But there's extraordinarily important work to do in Oklahoma, in Texas, in Louisiana, in Mississippi, in Arkansas, and those places that frankly have been either written off or taken for granted by both parties. So I'm not so much concerned as I am focused on the work that needs to be done. For those of us in Texas, we're working with an organization I started 4 or 5 years ago called Powered by People, which goes out and registers likely Democrats who are eligible to vote but aren't currently on the rolls, meeting them where they are. Last night, we were at Burgess High School here in El Paso, Texas, at their back to school fiesta, registering eligible seniors and many of their parents who, for whatever reason, never got registered to vote here in El Paso. The second thing we're doing is for every new registrant, we ask them if we can stay in touch with them through the election process. Texas makes it harder to vote than any other state in the union. We have these arcane, Byzantine, anti-voter laws that left literally millions of people without a voice and without a vote in our last midterm election. So our Powered by People volunteers really serve as personal Sherpas that help these new voters navigate these laws, make sure that they're casting that ballot. And if they have questions about, who supports a woman's right to choose, who wants to prioritize the lives of our kids in the classroom over the interests of the NRA, who wants to raise the minimum wage or expand Medicaid, we're very happy to share with them those candidates who reflect their values. So that's what I'm focused on. And I got to tell you, you probably feel the same way. I love the energy that is now coursing through our party with the incredibly noble decision that President Biden made to step aside as a candidate, and the elevation of Kamala Harris, which has absolutely rocked the political world and opened up possibilities that I think for many seemed shut off through November. So it's really on all of us now to make the most of this moment and ensure that we're doing everything we can to win in November.
And that brings us to our next question that we were going to talk about is, what are your thoughts about Vice President Kamala Harris and being the presumptive nominee as a Democratic candidate to the President of the United States?
I couldn't be more excited. I'm actually really surprised. You know the old line that we're not part of an organized party, we're Democrats. But to see Democrats really fall in line, sing from the same sheet of music, row in the same direction, whatever tried old metaphor we want to bring to the table, we're doing it. And I'm so impressed. And I understand there are always competing interests. There are always contests when it comes to ideas and the priority of policies. But I think we're all unified at this incredibly important defining moment about how critical it is to defeat Donald Trump, how important it is to get behind Kamala Harris, and talk about a candidate rising to the moment, the energy that she's bringing to this, the confidence in her speeches on the stump, the bounce in her step, the smile on her face. I mean, it's really kind of electrifying. And it just turns out it's exactly what we needed. And I don't know that any of us, or at least in my case, I don't know that I could have predicted anything like this in terms of just the power that she and her candidacy and all the people who are rallying behind her are bringing to this cause right now. I would say, we're still looking at the odds. We're still the underdogs.
Right.
This is going to be a really tough slog. We're probably in the honeymoon period of her ascension, and we really haven't seen the worst that Trump and the MAGA folks are going to throw at her and are going to throw at us. But I do feel that we're walking with greater confidence and greater strength, and we're more focused than we've ever been. And I think people know what the work is that we've got to do, and they've committed themselves to doing it. So I feel really, really good about things and about our chances, knowing that there's a lot of hard work in front of us, but very excited to get after it and to do it.
I have to agree with you. One of my friends out in Georgia, Brian Hopkins, who ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene, he was just at the rally yesterday, and he just posted a bunch of videos. He and I talked this morning, and he said the excitement from that rally that was put on there was just amazing, electrifying. Just all the metaphors that you just talked about. He said it was just one of the most amazing things. And said he's been to several rallies, including one that he snuck into for Trump. And he said none of them were like this one that went on yesterday. So you remember Scott Hamilton, correct? The executive director for the Oklahoma Democrats.
Absolutely.
He's no longer there at that. But Scott, good morning. I wanted to introduce you to Beto or reintroduce you to Beto and give you an opportunity here to ask a few questions.
Beto, as you were speaking just a moment ago, I was trying to think back to a time when I've seen so many diverse groups of people all united together and excited. And I'm thinking in terms of age, ethnicity, cultural backgrounds. I don't remember ever seeing this, with the exception of when President Obama was running. And it's as if that has been bottled up, and we are just ready to go the distance now. I'd like for you to speak a little bit about what that means, because the excitement is great, the fundraising is phenomenal, but the bottom line is, if people don't vote, then we don't win.
Yeah, that's right. And I think your assessment of the situation is right on point. I haven't seen anything like this in my adult life. I'm 51 years old, with the exception of Senator Obama's campaign in 2007, 2008. That was a campaign that had me more fired up than I'd ever been in my life. I was knocking on doors. Texas at the time had a two-step nominating process for the presidential nomination. We had both a caucus and a primary. I remember working the caucus in my Sunset Heights neighborhood. I remember donating somewhat to my wife's consternation, almost the maximum amount that you could, $25, $30, $50 at a time. Every email I got from the Barack Obama campaign, I was donating. I was going to do everything I could to help this extraordinary man take the most important, powerful position in this country, because I knew he would take us to a better place. And he absolutely did. Since then, while there have been candidates that I've been excited about, people that I've really pushed for, races that I've run myself, I haven't felt anything like that until now. And I think we see it reflected in, the rally that we were just hearing about in Atlanta, Georgia yesterday, in these diverse groups that you're talking about. We just saw a White Dudes for Kamala fundraiser that raised $4 million on Zoom, a white women fundraiser that raised many multiples over that on Zoom as well, that may have in fact broken Zoom, because so many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of women tried to join that phone call. And so I think it's just so important, one, that we give ourselves a chance to smile and to have some fun, because as Democrats, we really haven't done that in a long time. And I think we really deserve it. And this is a really great moment to step back and just realize how fortunate we are in terms of the candidate we have, the decision that the president made, and all these wonderful people who are coming to rally to Kamala Harris's banner. But to your point, I think we also have to steel ourselves for the days, the weeks, and the months ahead. This is going to be very, very tough. This is going to be door to door, house to house. This is going to be getting out there in the hot Oklahoma and Texas sun and meeting voters literally where they are, whether it's at their home, at their apartment, at their college, at their workplace, listening to them, talking with them, gaining a commitment from them to cast a ballot in this election. And you are probably one of the few people who understands what I'm about to say, which is that in places like, Oklahoma and Texas, we run into voters who say, you know what, Beto, you're probably right. And yes, we've got to stop Donald Trump. And I'd love to see Kamala Harris win the presidency, but my vote just doesn't count here. And what I've got to remind people of is absolutely your vote counts. And if you look at Texas, and there's something similar happening in Oklahoma, but in Texas, in 2012, when Barack Obama was running for re-election, he lost our state by 16 points. The next presidential election in 2016, Hillary lost Texas by only 9 points.
Right.
In 2020, Joe Biden lost Texas by 5.5 points. So it went from 16 to 9 to 5.5. There's actually no state that is moving closer to Democrats more quickly than Texas. And we're doing it without any outside donations, no DNC, no presidential candidates visiting our state. We're kind of left to our own devices. And yet, even with that being the case, we're getting the job done. So it's a matter of time and effort before Oklahoma and Texas are in that column. And once the Democratic nominee wins our states, there's literally no path to the White House for a Republican. So if you live in Oklahoma, if you live in Texas, absolutely your vote counts. And when the Democratic nominee wins our states, whether that's Kamala Harris in 2024 or Kamala Harris in 2028 or whoever it is down the road, it is going to be absolutely earth-shattering. And what wonderful poetic political justice for it to happen in these two critically important states. So you get that because you've been doing the work on the ground for so many years. We get that here in Texas. I don't think the rest of the country really realizes just how important our states are and what a significant shock to the system it will be once we finally bring them over the line on our side.
One of the things that you brought up is about going on in Texas and how things have shifted. We still remember those days of the John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson days when Texas was really a very strong Democratic stronghold. And even the time of Ann Richards, my goodness, how much a great person that lady was as the governor for the state of Texas, and how she shined so well at the Democratic National Convention, did such a wonderful job of just destroying George Bush. So, and we got to look to that for the future because we have those type of people that are coming on board now. And we've got somebody in Texas right now that we really need to think about, and somebody that I've seen a lot of your effort going into, and that's Colin Allred. Tell us a little bit about what you think about Colin Allred and how people should be supporting him.
Colin Allred, who is vying for Texas's Senate seat currently occupied by Ted Cruz, represents Democrats' best hope of picking up a Senate seat from Republicans. You can look at all 50 states, and Texas is our best pickup opportunity. As you know, I lost to Ted Cruz by just a little under 2.5 points in 2018. It was the closest Senate race in the country, most votes garnered by a Democrat in Texas in forever. And not only did we get really close, not only did we win places like Tarrant County, which until then had been the largest urban red county in America, but we helped down ballot candidates, state rep candidates, U.S. congressional candidates, state Senate candidates, judicial candidates win up and down the ballot in Texas. So we know that we can do this. Colin Allred is the guy who can bring it home. In 2018, that same year, he defeated Pete Sessions, an entrenched Republican incumbent who the odds makers said was going to be there for the rest of his natural life. Colin beat him by knocking on doors, by meeting voters exactly where they are, by conveying a message of hope and opportunity and ambition that really resonated in that reliably red district. Since then, he has served with absolute distinction in the House. He has worked on a bipartisan basis to get things done for his constituents and for the people of Texas and for this country. And I really do think he represents the absolute best hope of defeating Ted Cruz, which would just be a wonderful thing in and of itself, but also helping Democrats maintain control by a very narrow margin in an incredibly important institution, the United States Senate. And so this guy, Colin, is hustling across the 254 counties of Texas. He's bringing this incredibly powerful message of hope to the voters who are going to decide the outcome of this election. But I tell you what, he could sure use your help no matter where you are tuning into this podcast right now. If you can give a few dollars to Colin Allred's campaign, I guarantee you he's going to make the most of it to reach those voters who can make a difference, not just for Texas, but really given the outsized importance of this election for the country.
Well, it has been such a wonderful day and a wonderful time to spend just a few minutes with you, Beto. Thank you so much for coming on Coffee with Democrats. We've got so many other things to talk about, but we know your time is limited and that you need to jump off and go on about your day. But
absolutely. And thank you for the invitation. I want to thank you again, both of you, for what you've been doing for Oklahoma, for Democrats in places like Texas and other states where we really feel overlooked, forgotten, taken for granted, written off, however you want to call it. When we fight on all fronts, as you are doing and taking the lead in doing, we begin to win big elections, and we force Republicans to play defense in places that they never expected to. Today, we just saw the news that the Trump campaign is buying ads in North Carolina. A month ago, they were talking about winning New Jersey and winning Minnesota. Now they find themselves on defense in a place that they had taken for granted before. We need that to be the case in Oklahoma. We need that to be the case in Texas. The folks who are leading this effort on Coffee with Democrats and your listeners and your viewers, they're the people we're counting on right now. So I just want to say thank you to you, to the folks who are supporting the work that you're doing. I hope that you'll have me back on, and I look forward to working with you through the close of this cycle and into the next one.
You bet. Thank you so much for coming on. Yes. We kind of talking over one another. We apologize for that. One of the things that's happening right now that we're really proud of, we're being throttled by Elon Musk. He has shut off our live feed, but we're going to backdoor him today, and we're going to backdoor this video on there so that all of our followers on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, are going to see this video. And it's also going to be on Spotify and Threads and Tribal and all of our all of our social medias. So thanks again for coming on, Beto. You have a great day, and we will talk soon, and we'll send out another invite shortly.
Wonderful. Best of luck. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Beto.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. This segment of Coffee with Democrats is brought to you by Steve Holcomb, attorney at law. With family ties to Oklahoma in the legal field that goes back as far as the early 1900s, Steve Holcomb is a well-known and respected attorney at law in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. You can trust Steve Holcomb, attorney at law, with your legal needs. For generations encompassing over 100 years, the Holcomb family name has practiced law and served the cattlemen of Oklahoma. From Marion Holcomb, Steve's great-grandfather, who became a judge among the lands of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes in southwest Oklahoma in the early 1900s, who then moved to Pawhuska to practice law, to his grandfather, Thad Holcomb Sr., and his father, Lee Holcomb, who both served as presidents of the Osage County Cattlemen's Association. The Holcomb name has been and still is the trusted name for Oklahomans. As an enthusiastic supporter of Coffee with Democrats who promotes the Oklahoma standard of service, honor, and kindness, Steve Holcomb is the attorney we recommend going to when you have general practice legal needs. Call 918-287-8762. That's 918-287-8762 to schedule a consultation. Initial consultations may be provided free of charge, or go to holcomb.legal for more